come out of it. Being humbled by the nature of ancient civilizations. Louis C.K.'s issue with social media and Twitter. Louis C.K. independently releasing 4th of July. Okay, I can't. We have to see this. Joe Rogan and people that love Joe Rogan will, I think I talked about this earlier. Like, there are people who recognize that corporations engage in PR and, like, you know, branding and whitewashing of, like, horrible people. Like, we saw it best represented in the Andrew Cuomo saga, where, like, directly people that were involved in, like, the Time's Up movement were working with Andrew Cuomo on, like, silencing victims of Andrew Cuomo. And, you know, PR people, like the Pete Buttigieg lady, what was her, the flag?
Oh, Liz Smith.
Yeah, Liz Smith was like directly in contact and was like verbatim telling what MSNBC, what talking points were supposed to be. And a lot of people recognize that. A lot of people that are like, fuck mainstream media kind of understand that. And there's a level of skepticism that they have for mainstream media doing that all the time. But they can never apply that. They can never apply that to like the Joe Rogan experience. For some reason. They can't think that like Joe could be possibly doing a similar thing, like when he brings Alex Jones on, or when he has like Louis C.K. on. Say what you want, but Louis C.K. is one of the goats of comedy. I first of all, Louis C.K. was very funny, okay, very very funny. But before he got fucking canceled for understandable reasons, because he was like trying to fucking like jerk off to every young female comic that he had ever went on stage with indiscriminately, okay? Even before then, he had reached the peak of his career. I remember seeing him at what's the place in Inglewood, like the legendary it's like a stadium, I think. Yeah, the Forum. I saw him at the Forum and it was so fucking bad. Like, he was so bad. This was before like all this shit popped off. And I was like, God damn, he is like.
So this is your story about how you actually disliked Louis C.K. before he got canceled.
No. I mean, of course, who wasn't a fan of Louis C.K.? I feel like he was like always.
No, I mean Louis. I mean, it was very like. I think it was one of the things that I feel like. His was one of the few cancellations where I feel like it caused, because remember, HBO pulled all of his stuff off the catalog. It was a big thing. And then everybody went back and was like, all right, how do we really feel about Louis? And I didn't do that because I didn't really watch it the first time around.
Oh, you didn't watch it?
I mean, I watched part of it, but it's like,
I always also had like a lot of respect for him because he was like he was like the closest we have to like a psychotic like artist, almost like an auteur who he fucking edited Louis, the TV show, on a fucking 15-inch MacBook, all on his own, like entirely on his own. So I was like, this dude's crazy. I think it was pretty funny.
I mean, I think he was funny. I think to me, the like thing is that it's sort of, to me, what it feels like all this stuff is sort of done is put it in question about like, all right, well, like one, why I guess was the like what the stuff that people found so funny and like his insights and being like an awkward middle-aged guy or whatever. Like his is like the canonical case of like, how do people process that somebody who makes this kind of thing is like, you know, it turns out in his private life different from what the art portrays him as or whatever. But yeah,
I mean, half the shit he joked about, he did in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's like kind of that's really fucked up.
I mean, that's like half of all novelists, though.
It's like you want to separate the art from the artist, but like Louis C.K. certainly wasn't. You know what I mean?
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Like when you do stand up, the people who are in the audience have a fucking vote on my act. Like they actually have a direct.
Oh no, leaning into the Warren Jeffs attire, not good. What's up with those glasses, my man?
Jesus,
You can't be
like Terry Richardson kind of.
Yeah, you can't be doing that, bro. If you got fucking canceled for being a sex pest, you can't come back with a sex pest looking fit. Like what the fuck, dude? What the fuck? That's a terrible choice, dude. Like fucking literally hire like a PR guy or something. What are you doing?
Influence. I give a giant fuck about them. They paid money and they came, they fucking traveled, parked a car, got a babysitter, and they're sitting shoulder to shoulder with strangers listening. So if I see a face that goes, I fucking see it, and it may not change my joke entirely, but there's a gland in me that takes all of that in, and you know what I mean, in the aggregate. and changes. And it's not about their acceptance. Sometimes it's about going to what upsets them and pushing past it. But they're involved. And I have.
Louis is still funny, and he's not canceled to me. Saying sorry and addressing the situation should fucking mean something, dude. And the guy makes rage shit. Wait, what? Bro, there's like things you can say sorry about. You know what I mean? You can be like, yeah, I said some fucked up shit 10 years ago. That's whatever. I did some fucked up shit even. You know what I mean? As long as you like, as long as you have shown, you've made amends, you've shown that you've changed, moved on. But like, like what he did was like a little bit above and beyond. Just
there was a.
He was a whole ass adult cranking off. Everyone who gets Mewtwo goes through a toaster that ages them rapidly. Related, it's why Dane Cook looks like Harvey Weinstein's Charmander. Dane Cook got Me Too'd, but like he literally was like, no, actually, I'm gonna put a ring on it.
Yeah, that one was really. Although the Delia one is still the GOAT.
Yeah.
Reaction video.
Oh, Chris D'Elia. Oh yeah, when he's like, Snapchat?
Snapchat, you could save messages.
Yeah, that was crazy. As someone who isn't aware, what did Louis C.K. do? Louis C.K. basically he loved jerking off. It's like a power thing. It's kind of typical actually to like Harvey Weinstein's case as well, where like Harvey Weinstein had a fucked up dick. He had gangrene on his cock, so he like didn't really have a dick. But he loved jerking off in front of non-consenting women. And Louis C.K. was doing that as well. He was like, he loved jerking off on phone conversations, but he also loved masturbating. He also, he would flash women and then like make them stay while he jerked off. And the women that he did that to were non-consenting parties, or rather were not really capable of consenting either, because like, they were, young comics that he had brought up with him on stage. You know what I mean? He would like have women open for him and then do that shit.
And there was also like a part of it where his manager, this guy, Dave Becky, there was a lot of stuff about how like journalists and other people who had tried to, say peep about what had happened were suppressed.
Yeah. Oh, for the record, for people who say like, well, he asked about it first. Like, yes, he did ask about it, but you have to also remember that he literally, like, I know I joke a lot about the fucking the problematic age gap discourse that fucking Zoomers love having on the internet, where they're like, oh, you weren't born in the same month as this person in the same year. Like, that's a problematic age gap. But like the power dynamic in that circumstance absolutely was coercive. Absolutely was coercive. You know what I mean? Like he basically would just like have them come over. He would have these young up and coming female comics over and then fucking, crank it. Under New York City law where he lived, that's literal textbook workplace sexual harassment. Yeah, exactly. It's like your fucking manager being like, hey, come inside. Can I whip my dick out and like jerk it off a little bit? And you're like, I don't know. Okay. That's weird. And then, and then you're like, all right, cool. Boom.
I have to keep that clean, that it's about me and them.
Yeah.
If I read something by somebody who didn't come to the show, who doesn't go to comedy shows, who's reacting to something that was written about a show, a person who wrote it to get clicks, somebody who's professionally disgruntled and says this was a bad show, and then somebody tweets, fuck that guy, and I'm letting that person out.
For the record, he could be right about fucking his attitude. He could, because his cultural critique was like decent, regardless of him being a sex pest.
Yeah,
I will admit, like his cultural critique was always like he was always relatively sharp until the forum thing when I saw him there, and I was like, damn, this dude sucks now. I hated on Louis C.K. before it was cool, chat. But so he might actually have a sharp take on this that's good, that goes beyond like I've been scorned by the mob.
Right. Well, I mean, like he's not a dumbass, and I think it's like pretty clear that he knows what, like, he's also, as a guy who has received probably more good press in his life than anybody else, like in a similar position, like favorable New Yorker profiles and all this stuff. Like he does know that like people are not on the internet necessarily, and even like quote unquote clickbait people are necessarily on the internet to be professionally disgruntled. It feels though like part of what he is what he's responding to, and I imagine is definitely part of his critique now, is that like, yeah, social media makes everybody progress professionally disgruntled, and that's how he's describing this hypothetical about how people respond to his work via Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
Weigh the rights of my audience, it's irresponsible. So I don't even think you should. It's not even about reading it and then resisting it.
By the way, for the people who are saying like cancel culture is real or whatever, like, didn't his album get put up for a fucking Grammy? Yeah, the comedy album that he self-released was put up for a Grammy. I've been meaning to listen to it. I keep forgetting to fucking watch it. Like he personally, because I want to see what he. He
won the Grammy.
He won? No shot.
Of course.
Jesus Christ.
Even be aware of it. You should just stay. Fuck those people. If they're not there,
right,
they're not involved.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that it's also, it'll change the way you do comedy if you take that, if you internalize that shit.
Yeah. If you're picturing the jokes you're telling to this audience, going out into the world, and what are they going to say about it? And again, in a world that it's a sport to get upset.
Yeah.
It's a
like the thing about this as a comedian in the like increasingly online age. He's not wrong about, I can't believe I'm saying this because this is like such a bad look, but he's not wrong. Like the way you make jokes, because I tell my chat this all the time because they get like super fucking bent about comics and like their bits and whatever. And it's like, you have to understand that a lot of people, when they, comedians can only get better by doing a certain, by doing one thing, and that's it. And what that one thing is go out and try your material in as many fucking rooms as possible and see and read the room and see how they react to it. There's no other way to develop there's no other way to develop a stand-up set. You just can't do it. You have to go out and participate. And the issue in that situation is that when you are doing that, and some of your bits are going to be bad, especially if you're like diving into tricky territory, which, you know, a lot of good comedians will always do, especially because like that kind of cultural commentary can be very sharp and very funny if he fucking nails it. But if it's bad, if it's off, if the delivery is not there, then it's all of a sudden really fucking bad, because the difference between like, a person not being able to deliver the adequate performance and a person being able to do so is like the difference between someone coming across as racist and someone coming across as very funny. You know what I mean? Context and nuance in that circumstance will greatly change the way that this joke is received. You might say dicey territory. Exactly. Dicey. So, George Carlin says comedy should always punch up, just bullying punch down. Fine. But even if you're punching up, if you don't nail the delivery, it might come across like you're punching down. So basically, if people watch you do that, and they catch you slipping, they catch you testing out a material that's not going to be good, that you never intended to hit like a larger audience, and then they want to cancel you over it, then yeah, you don't understand how the art form works, and you're kind of like bringing it to a much larger audience and using it against people. This isn't just for Louis C.K., obviously, and it certainly does not pertain to Louis C.K.'s like sexual transgressions, his past as a sex pest. I'm specifically talking about comedy in general. So I think his analysis in that circumstance is adequate, even if he is the worst person to deliver that. On
it's
the Joe
a
Rogan
soothing,
experience.
fun sport. And I have no problem with it. They can play that game together, and that's fine. But if you let it actually change, if you actually take it in,
right,
it's not, and they don't mean it. None of these people mean it. It's
Right.
just a momentary, fuck him, and then they move on to something else. They're not invested in it.
You said something to me once that I tell people all the time. You said that Twitter's just talk, but it's written down. So it like seems like it's more than just talk, because people always talk. Like,
That's
oh,
right.
that fucking sucked, or oh, he's a piece of shit.
That's
they,
right.
They say things like that normally. It's normal, but you're not aware of it.
That's right.
It's a normal thing that
It's
people
even
do.
healthy
Yeah.
as
Fuck's
talk.
that
This is
guy?
something that my ex-girlfriend who's very close to me still, Blanche Gardin. She's a French comedian. And she's very big in France. She's huge there. And she had a bit that I can't remember. It was in French, and I don't, about that Twitter, that there used to be talk. And talk is air. It goes out. People say, that guy fucking sucks. Just to each other.
Right.
And it's gone. They don't have to mean it, But then it's committed to the Library of Congress. And the person who wrote it can't even take it back.
Right.
They're like, I got to stand behind that now.
Yeah.
And then they got to double down on it. And as comedians and entertainers, we're supposed to have these people just yapping about us. Yeah, fuck Joe Rogan. Somebody who's even a fan.
Yeah.
Might just to enjoy his beer for the moment.
Right.
Fuck him.
Yeah.
But then if you showed up there, he'd be like, oh my God, Joe Rogan, I fucking love it. But the fact that comedians are partly responsible because they're on Twitter and they want to be liked there too.
Yeah.
And they want to be there overseeing the conversations, looking for somebody saying something bad about them and then
Talking about me.
responding. Are you fucking high?
It's
I mean,
crazy.
I do.
It's kind of conflated.
That is like kind of worth noting, which is also that it's like the way he's describing that like people react to and like, you know, relate to their relate to Twitter and stuff. Like the two things that just come to mind are the first that like one, I don't think that like, you know, he's saying that like, yeah, this stuff is all written down, but like as we all know, like content's worthless. Like it's like by its own, like a single tweet like that, you can ignore it, you can promote it, you could go nuts with it, but like there's so much of it that so little has staying power. The problem is like the that it's like made up of the environment. And then the second thing, I guess, is just that like I don't think that people like he, you know, the way he describes how it's like, oh, everybody would be like, oh, hey, Joe Rogan, if they saw him in person. And it's like, that's not true. I've seen people that like I know, you know, from the internet or whatever I've seen in real life, and who I then or have seen because I know them by reputation. I think they fucking suck, and then I said, hey, you fucking suck, or whatever. Like, you know, or you just don't have to say hi to them at all, or so on. There's just to me like a kind of like way in which I feel like he's representing these opportunities so that like there's a not like persecution, because I don't think it's like a persecution complex, but like he is describing this experience of like the difficulty of celebrity in like a live room or something that I don't know, it just doesn't feel, it just feels like it's missing a couple beats in terms of like, well, why is that, and why might people respond that way, etc.
I think that, look, I'm a fan of redemption. Okay, I'm a big fan. And I think that the American draconian understanding of crime and punishment, I think, like has totally made its way into our cultural consciousness and the way we interpret like even daily interactions from that same lens and that same framework. The same reason as to why people are like, oh, if someone has done a crime, like they deserve the death penalty. Yeah. Is like a different version of that exists in our real lives where we just also end up you know, running with the same like you know, punishment. Now you have to understand though, that means like in order for someone to be redeemed though, they also have to like openly showcase that they were wrong, like openly show that they were wrong, try to make amends, you know what I mean, clean themselves up, become a better human being. And I feel like, I don't know, if people have like quote unquote canceled you, and your return from that cancellation is like self-releasing your stand-up special that ends up winning a Grammy and then going on the Joe Rogan Experience and being like, oh, this is a hit job, then it doesn't seem like you understood. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like you felt like you did anything. Like you don't, if you're not going to take accountability for it, then do you even feel like you did something wrong, or do you feel like you have been wronged, right? And I don't think Louis C.K. did that. I don't think Louis C.K. Recognizes that he wronged people and did like some really fucked up things. So, yeah, I don't know. Noah is spot on, is picking up on Louis talking about cancel culture, how to navigate it, why it doesn't matter, is less discourse and more Louis working through now, how he squares what he did with being in public on Rogan. Not talking about cancellation. He's saying, if you think about it like this, Louis, was wrong. Don't call me a victim. Blame Twitter, but you were wrong about me. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's like, it is really suspicious in general how often like people's takes on cancel culture seem to so often like have a real, you know, like they are, whether, you know, and it doesn't mean that they're the idea or like the take in question would be wrong or something, but like it's pretty clear that that these things are formed directly in relation to whether or not somebody like Louis C.K. was canceled and his experience of it, and not with like, you know, like the first principles of the issue itself. And that to me feels like a really, you know, it's something that, you know, it's like one of these things that feels like part of the kayfabe of cancel culture description or conversations in general. Just that like, oh yeah, like what we all know is that everybody who is like was canceled or is grappling with it, etc., like invariably will form their take on it in relation to their set of experiences. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to like pretend as if this is some gigantic, big, like amazing, fucking School of Athens philosophical debate.
Yeah. He talks about the whole situation in special. I mean, I'll take a look at it. But for the chatter saying like, oh, dude, Aziz Ansari handled it really well. It's like, bro, if you're comparing what happened to Aziz Ansari with what Louis C.K. did, I don't know what to tell you. Those two things are in entirely different planets, okay? Like, that was a pendulum swing that was a pendulum swing that went so fucking far that, like, most people were like, okay, this is ridiculous. This is, this is kind of wild, okay? Like, maybe people should chill out a little bit on it, okay? And that happens every single time. Dan Harmon is a better example than Aziz Ansari, I think. And even then, what Dan Harmon did is not close to the rampant, coercive, sexual assault that Louis C.K. put young female comics through. Like, Aziz Ansari is just a fucking weird, nerdy guy who became fucking famous and went on a date with someone who didn't like the date. That person themselves openly mentioned that they consented to it, and basically, at least the way that Babe article was written, that Babe.com, remember Babe.com?
Babe.net.
Yeah, Babe.net article was written, basically said that it was a bad date, but he should be fucking Me Too'd for it. Okay? And even then, he literally fucking, even then, he still went away for a while. And then he still came back and said, I'm sorry if my actions were inappropriate. I didn't understand it at the time. And then he moved on. Whereas Louis C.K. is not in that situation. Okay? That girl literally ruined Master of... I mean, who gives a shit if the fucking Master of None was ruined? Calm down.
Yeah, like Spike Jonze shot like Aziz Ansari's comeback. Like, there's also, again, it's just like the cancel culture like framework does not match the much more complex reality.
Did you mean Dan Schneider?
No, Dan Schneider's just evil.
What the fuck? What? Dan Schneider? No, Dan Schneider never got... Did anyone even ever cancel Dan Schneider? No.
I think he was... Well, he's now like... I mean, he's now like... Well, he never got canceled. I mean, he's just gone, right?
Yeah, he just left. He did his thing. He made a fuckload of money.
Yeah.
And was incredibly creepy and pedophilic, and allegedly. And yeah, he got to resign quietly and now can just live comfortably for the rest of his fucking life. Yeah, Dan Harmon basically power played a lower level writer in his producer/writer's room. But the reason why I was mentioning Dan Harmon was because this is some real 2017
Yeah, I was
shit.
about to say, this is
like a blast from the past.
Yeah,
we're talking about Me Too, like at the height of Me Too.
This is like 4 or 5 years ago, damn.
Yeah. Babe.net hasn't posted since November 2020. Yeah, I know. It's not surprising. Everyone fucking shit on the article when it first came out. Anyway, yeah, Dan Harmon apologized. Like, Dan Harmon apologized, and I think it was like considered one of the most like adequate apologies. Like the victim
he
herself
apologized on a podcast.
Yeah, the victim herself.
I remember people. I mean, it was like, I don't think like apologies don't deserve to be gassed up in general, but it was like a good example of also like of like how to do it in a way that draws attention appropriately, but without doing it clearly for the purpose of making the person give it feel better.
Yeah. Dan Schneider did the Janet McCurdy and what's her face stuff. I don't know what the fuck that is. Dan Schneider did like a bunch of child's shows and was very creepy and allegedly pedophilic. Okay, and like ruined an entire generation of child actors who already are like, already getting fucked up.
Things, I think Twitter it's not. I don't think that anybody on Twitter means anything they say. I don't believe that I don't think a single tweet is really sincere. Folks. It's just a calculation of what's this going to do, and it's based in fear and hope, which are both dumb things. But it's not.
I mean, there's truth to that too, which is a fucked up part. Like, do people One thing I talk about regularly on this broadcast, maybe it's because I'm so fucking like fed up with internet because I'm so on the internet all the time because I'm so accessible. But one thing I regularly talk about is the narcissism of people who weaponize social justice in a way that like suits their the narcissism of people who weaponize social justice to center the conversation around themselves.
Yes.
People do this all the time for clicks as well on Twitter. People do this in my chat all the fucking time as well. They come into my chat and they're like, "Oh, well, I know you're talking about like a strike right now, but," or one of the most famous examples of this is actually every time I talk about showering, or I tell people to fucking take a shower, there will always be someone who turns around and says, "Oh, I can't believe you're saying that. Like depressed people can't shower, or I can't shower because I'm paralyzed from the neck down, and what the fuck?" Like, and it's like, okay, well, I wasn't talking about you. Okay, well, that you have your own reasons. Okay, like, oh, asking people to take a shower is ableist, and it's like you only want to center the conversation around yourself, and you're using emancipatory language in an effort to get other people in an otherwise empathetic community to like listen to you and only hyper focus on you in this situation. That in itself is not activism. You're not actually trying to solve a problem. Okay. You're just, you just want to have everybody pay attention to you. And that is narcissistic and it derails the stream. And people do that on Twitter all the time for likes.
Yeah.
Like the pile-ons and shit. So there's truth to that. But that also comes from a place of powerlessness because it is one of the few places where you actually feel like you can move the needle, something that's larger than yourself, in an increasingly alienated society where we have no power and no mechanism of pushback to change like the structures that oppress us. We have the only thing in our hands is like the immediate response you can get from a corporation that will very easily go, "Oh shit, a lot of people are talking about this and we're a brand. We got to make sure we're a brand, so we're going to respond. What do you want? Okay, sure. We'll fire one of the writers or something." You know what I mean? On a show. And that's not any sort of change. That's not meaningful change. That's what powerless people do. Okay? And I recognize that. So there is truth to that sentiment as well. But the other part of that is because the systems themselves do not actually offer any sort of serious legal recourse, any sort of serious restitution to the victims when it comes to people like Louis C.K. cranking out fucking fat loads to every young female comic that they asked to open for him, okay? That's why a lot of people are like, well, fuck you. What the fuck are you doing? That's why they try to take matters into their own hands, okay? It still is from a sense of powerlessness, but that does not necessarily mean that it's always unjust. It's always unjustifiable or bad or wrong. You know what I mean? Harvey Weinstein is a good example of this as well. And Aziz Ansari is a good example in the opposite direction, where sometimes people can, take a pre-existing movement and turn it into their own pet project, their own branding project, like the Time's Up movement. Like almost all of those fucking people that took Me Too and turned it into Time's Up were like themselves fucking sex pests and shit. You know what I mean? Like they literally were doing it because they were like, oh, let's turn around and make this our own PR thing, okay? And we can work with the likes of Andrew Cuomo and whatnot. Anyway, but
Really
I
like
understand, just like you correctly pointed out, why Louis C.K. is like addressing that, a thing that like most people kind of see and resent from afar in an effort to basically defend himself.
Sincere
What happened to me wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
How I feel.
Right.
So if you give it all that, and comedians that tweet jokes, the same exact format and type, and then tweet a political opinion in the same thing, that's one of the reasons I think folks have started to take jokes seriously, because there are comedians that want to be funny and taken seriously. So they're doing both. So of course people are confused by it. And there's no, and it's not in a club or at least a theater where it's like comedy is this really, really fun experiment. Just for this one night, we're not going to worry about offending each other. We're not going to worry about what's right or wrong. We're just going to talk shit.
Yeah.
And we're going to go on. And I'm really good at it. I can talk shit like you wouldn't believe. I'm going to astonish you with how much I shouldn't be saying this.
Right.
That's the game. But if you translated it to text and put it out like a statement, like it's a fucking statement from a
Right.
senator,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna. Other people aren't gonna take it right.